Burn. Hello, beautiful people. It's your friendly neighborhood Hakias here, and today I wanted to do something a little different because I've been thinking about Organization 13 a lot lately and who they are and what they want, and so I felt the need to do a little bit of research. And I figured if I'm gonna do research, then I might as well share it with the rest of you so that we could be on the same page headed into Kingdom Hearts 3. But before I get into that, I just wanted to point out that intro video that you just saw. I think it's pretty cool, and while I did have a hand in designing it, a lot of the credit goes to my fellow YouTuber, Artemis. I've got links to his Twitter and his YouTube in the description below, so please go check him out and give him some love for helping me come up with that intro. Also, in case you didn't consider it, this video is definitely going to have lots of spoilers for the entire series, including some information from Kingdom Hearts Union Cross that hasn't actually made it to the English version yet, and also some information, some possible spoilers, I guess you would say, from speculation into what we've seen so far in the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers. So if you don't want potential spoilers, if you haven't played all of the games, then and you're worried about seeing those spoilers, then go ahead and turn this video off now, because it's just gonna be giant. It's all spoilers. There's nothing but spoilers for the entire series. So you've been warned. So Organization 13. In a storytelling sense, they're simply the villains who were created in this series to replace the original antagonist, Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, who was defeated at the end of the first game. Fortunately, Tetsuya Nomura and the rest of the writing staff didn't just give us 13 people who all have identical goals and just different personalities and different techniques. They actually have conflicting personalities, which adds a lot of interesting stuff to the story that wouldn't necessarily be there otherwise. So just to give some broad strokes about the organization and their goals, they're comprised of approximately 13 members, more on that in a moment, and each member is what is known as a nobody. So in Kingdom Hearts, when a person's heart gives into darkness, their heart becomes a shadow monster, which is called a Heartless. But if the person has a strong will, their body and or soul that's left over from that heart turning into a Heartless forms a new being called a nobody. Most nobodies do remember their human selves, or their somebody selves as they're usually called, and but since they don't have any hearts, because they formed the Heartless, they can't feel emotions, and this creates a lot of conflict for them, and a lot of it provides their motivation basically for what they want to do. So when the goal of the organization is finally revealed about halfway through Kingdom Hearts 2, we discover that they've been following Keyblade wielders such as Sora and collecting the hearts freed when he destroys Heartless. They then combine these hearts together in order to create at least one form of Kingdom Hearts. That's what they're trying to do. They haven't quite completed it at that point. And yes, there are multiple versions of Kingdom Hearts, but that's a topic for another video. So Sora foils this mission in Kingdom Hearts 2. By the end of that game, all of the nobodies who make up the organization have been destroyed. Sora and company think this is the end of the organization. But it turns out that when a nobody and its corresponding Heartless are destroyed, they actually rejoin to form the original somebody. This means that none of the people that Sora defeated are dead, and they all retain their memories from their nobody existence too, so they're free to move forward with new plans or to continue their old schemes. And of course, some of the organization members do want to continue those previous schemes. It turns out that the organization was originally formed for a different purpose than collecting hearts. We find this out in Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. The reason it's called Organization 13 is not because it was always formed of 13 members, it is because it was always supposed to have 13 members. The final form, the ultimate form, had 13 members in it. It turns out that the way to form the true Kingdom Hearts is to have 13 hearts of pure darkness battle against the 7 guardians of light, or the 7 hearts of pure light. We're familiar with the 7 hearts of pure light from Kingdom Hearts 1. I don't want to go into too much detail. The 7 guardians of light is a little bit iffier. We're not 100% sure who those are supposed to be yet. We have an idea, but there's some various people that could fill those roles, and there's various reasons why they're not currently filling those roles. But that's, again, a topic for another video. Anyway, so the original goal of forming the organization was to find or create 13 vessels without hearts in them, so that Xehanort, the original person, somebody who became Xemnas and Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, could put fragments of his heart inside of them to create the 13 warriors of darkness to battle the 7 guardians of light, in order to create the conditions so that he can create Kingdom Hearts. So all of that is the necessary background, but the question I really wanted to answer today is, who are each of these nobodies? They're far more unique than they might have been, and I wanted to be sure that I, and now you, since I'm doing this video and you're watching it, have it clear in my head who they are and how they differ from each other, and kind of think about where they're going in the future and how they might have gotten there. So let's get to it. So for each of these members, I have a list of traits or thoughts that I want to share with you, and I'm just going to kind of go through them in order, because that's just kind of how I think. So we'll go, as I said, in organization order, and the first up is number 1, Xemnas. So his name, his somebody name, well, it's not actually his somebody name. His name is derived from Ansem, the name he stole. This is Xehanort's nobody. But all the nobodies, they take their original name, or at least they're supposed to take their real name, add an X, do an anagram. So he took his stolen name, Ansem, and did the anagram and came up with Xemnas. He is the enigmatic master of nothingness, the superior of the in-between. That's his title. His element is nothingness. So what he does is he uses that in various sorceries, and uses it kind of to fight people. It's kind of hard to describe how he uses that in combat, but that's his element. Every nobody has an element, every nobody has a title. That's the title that I gave you. So most of the nobodies have a nobody form that they control, and the nobodies that are derived from Xemnas are known as sorcerers. So they also have the power of nothingness, and they use these nothingness blocks to do various attacks and attack Sora, and they're kind of a pain. His weapon is the ethereal blades. They look kind of like lightsabers. His history, so to just gonna kind of give him the history of him, he came into being through the Heartless experiments that were originally initiated by Ansem and then pushed forward by Xehanort, the Xehanort who was using Terra's body. Again, the whole Xehanorts thing, how many there are and where they all are, that's probably a subject for a whole different video, but just know that that he took experiments that were being done by King Ansem the Wise, which, you know, how wise was he if he was doing Heartless experiments, and pushed and stole them from him and pushed them forward when Ansem started to get cold feet and made himself into a Heartless and a nobody. So far in the story, he led the organization in an attempt to create a version of Kingdom Hearts during the events of Kingdom Hearts 2 and 358 over 2 days. He was supposed to be preparing them for possession by Xehanort. He was supposed to be preparing Organization 13 for possession by Xehanort, but most of the members he recruited proved to be unsuitable for one reason or another. As to the future, what's going to happen in Kingdom Hearts 3, he appears to have turned himself back into a nobody as well as a Heartless in order to become a member of Xehanort's new Organization 13, the one that really is focused on getting pieces of Xehanort's heart all together in an army of 13 people to do battle with the 7 Guardians of Light. His personality, he's just kind of cold and cruel. He's very calm. Ansem, the Ansem Seeker of Darkness, the Heartless version of Terra Xehanort, was very angry, very emotional. Xemnas, on the other hand, he really takes to heart this idea that he has no heart, no pun intended, and does not express emotions Not at the very end of Kingdom Hearts 2, he seems distraught at the hole that King Ansem the Wise blows into Kingdom Hearts, but that's about the only time he seems upset or otherwise emotional. And then he kind of gets angry after that when he fights with Sora and Riku, I guess. But for the most part, he does not express emotions. That's just some personal notes I wrote to myself. A lot of people say that they did some retconning in order to make the whole new Organization 13 thing work. But the way I see it is that his Kingdom Hearts 2 motivation of building a Kingdom Hearts by collecting hearts makes sense. He'd already at that point figured out that the organization members he had were not going to be suitable for his task. He may have initially even created this idea of let's build a Kingdom Hearts, you know, because Xehanort is always plans within plans within plans, so Xemnas being his nobody would have a similar idea. He may have created this idea of kill two birds with one stone, keep the organization busy, give them a goal while I make sure that they are suitable for this purpose of getting a heart in, and then if that doesn't work out, then maybe at least I can build this inferior version of Kingdom Hearts. As it turns out, he couldn't do either. But I don't think that the two missions are necessarily counter to each other or conflicting with each other. Number 2 is Xigbar. His name is derived from his somebody name of Braig. He traverses between the realms, skilled at recon, and his title is the Free Shooter. He is the right-hand man, number 2 guy in the organization. So his name, as I said, is derived from Braig. His attribute is space, so he's actually able to teleport himself around without necessarily... Everyone can teleport from planet to planet, all the organization members, that is, can teleport from planet to planet using the lanes between, so it's more like hyperspace than teleportation, but he can actually, within a short area, teleport from place to place. And then he uses his arrow guns, which he calls the sharpshooters, to shoot people, and using space he can actually control and redirect his projectiles, so that's a pretty cool trait that he has. His nobodies that he controls are the snipers, and they're like him. They teleport and they shoot arrow gun like appendages and can control the direction of the projectiles. He actually has, we know a lot more about him. Well, we know a lot about Xemnas' history as Ansem, but we know a lot of history about Braig, actually. He shows up in Birth by Sleep. He worked with Xehanort from day one, basically, to help him take over Terra's body and form that first attempt at the Keyblade, also the X-Blade, like the Greek letter Key Blade. He became an apprentice to Ansem, King Ansem the Wise, in order to help Xehanort once Xehanort took over Terra's body in working on the Heartless experiments, etc., etc. So far in the story, he has assisted Xehanort's attempt to create that X-Blade Kingdom Hearts. He also tried to help create the Freed Hearts Kingdom Hearts, which is the one we saw in Kingdom Hearts 2. He is actually... we know from Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance that he helps form the core of the new Organization 13, along with Xemnas, Ansem Seeker of Darkness, and Xehanort, and young Xehanort, and then there's a few other people, but we'll get to them in a little bit, because he actually is actively a part of trying to... Their plan was to take Sora and turn him into the 13th vessel, and Xigbar was actively a part of that plan. And, of course it failed, because the bad guy's plans always fail, but he was there. So he's been helping Xehanort and Xemnas with their plans from day one. Every plan they've had, Xigbar's been there trying to help them make it happen. Excuse me. In the future, as I said, he's appeared to have returned to his nobody form to join the new Organization 13. So he's likely to be a part of the new Organization 13 in Kingdom Hearts 3. His personality is snarky. He's got that catchphrase "as if," which I really like. He's a much more fun villain to have around than some of the others. He's always worked for evil, even from when he was a human. It's not always true of the nobodies that we run into. He's always worked for the purposes of evil. And I didn't put any personal notes down for him. He's just an interesting guy. We know there's not a lot of guessing that has to go on with him, because, like I said, we've seen him from Birth by Sleep all the way through Dream Drop Distance. We've seen what he's doing and what he wants to do and what his goals are. So There's Xigbar. Number 3 is Xaldin. His title is the Whirlwind Lancer. As you can see, he is a warrior and tactician. He harnesses the wind, and he is organization member number 3. So his original name was Dylan, and as you can see, his attribute is wind. The nobodies he controls are dragoons, so they also use these lances like he uses, as you can see in that little video there. They're called the Lindworm. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Lindworm or Lindworm. So his history is that as somebody, he was a palace guard / apprentice for Ansem. During experiments, he was turned into a nobody and forms. He's one of the original Organization 13 members, one of the founding members, I guess you would say. We don't know much about his somebody other than that. Working for King Ansem, it's hard to think that he was necessarily evil, but obviously some of the members were. So maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. He didn't seem evil when we ran into him in Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, though he didn't seem particularly helpful either. So far as a nobody, he has attempted to aid Xemnas' plans to create the freed heart Kingdom Hearts. His goal was to turn Beast from Beauty and the Beast into a Heartless so that Sora would kill the Heartless, free the heart. That would be a big old heart that they could just tack on to Kingdom Hearts. And he failed. Obviously, a lot of these plans are failures. Let's be real. So you can just almost assume that all of the plans are failures. His personality is he's pretty like all the organization members. Pretty much, he's just ruthless in pursuit of his goals and doesn't express a lot of other emotions. That's the majority of the organization members. So it's interesting that. Just to point this out, it doesn't really fit here, but I'm going to do it because I'm here. In a lot of other stories, I think you would see an organization like this would have wildly varying personalities, but they would all have the same one. They would all be 100% agreed on their goal. In this case, a lot of them have the same personality, but they can be wildly varying in their goals and their motivations. So Xaldin may not actually be evil. He may have just been doing the only thing he knew to do in order to get a heart, and he was just willing to ruthlessly go for that goal. The only personal note I have for Xaldin is that he is, as far as I'm concerned, the most difficult boss in Kingdom Hearts 2 was Xaldin. Just the base version. I don't like fighting Xaldin. He's a pain. Up next, number 4, it's Vexen. He has domain over the power of ice. He's brilliant, and he's the Chilly Academic. So that's his title, the Chilly Academic, and of course his attribute is ice, which he uses both with his shield, which is an ice shield, and he has ice sorcery that he uses for offensive attacks. His human name, his somebody name was Evan. It's spelled like the word even, but it's pronounced Evan. So with the nobodies, the subordinate nobodies, they weren't really seen until Kingdom Hearts 2, and Vexen didn't make it out of Chain of Memories. In fact, he was the first nobody to die. So his weapon is, as I said, the shield. Its name is Frozen Pride, and he uses it to great effect to deflect attacks as well as to freeze his enemies. So his history as a somebody, he worked as a research scientist / apprentice to King Ansem the Wise. That pretty much everybody who worked for Ansem was an apprentice of some sort. I don't know when or how or why that was decided, but that's what they call them all. So he assisted in the Heartless experiments and became a founding member of the organization. So far as a nobody, he performed experiments as a nobody to create replicas. So we'll get more into one of those later, but the most famous example that everyone should know at this point is Replica Riku, who shows up in Chain of Memories. And he was ultimately killed by Axel, because Axel was afraid that Vexen would join the traitors in Castle Oblivion and give them the secrets to his replica magic science stuff. So Axel saw him get defeated by Sora and then killed him to make sure that that didn't happen. His future is unclear. Like Xaldin / Dylan, and several other organization members. We see them wake up in the lab in Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, left there by Xemnas and Xigbar, so they are not immediately in league with the forces of Xehanort, but that doesn't mean that he can't be. As the Chile academic, he's never been a particularly nice guy. Vexen at least has not been, so it wouldn't surprise me to see him go ahead and go back to Xehanort and be like, fine, give me a piece of your soul, whatever, just let me perform some more horrible science experiments. But at the same time, it also wouldn't surprise me to see him go, well, that sucked, let's not do that again, now I'm gonna help Sora defeat him. It could go either way. So his personality, he's, as I said, he's obsessed with his experiments. That's really all he cares about. He just wants to perform experiments. He's also obsessed with rank. He's one of the few organization members to focus on the numbers that they have when dealing with Marluxia and Larxene and even Axel in the Castle Oblivion. He points out that he is a senior member. He is number 4. They're all below him. So that's an interesting personality trait. He's dismissive of anyone he deems to be of lesser intellect, which is pretty much everyone. Personal notes. I personally love his crazy eyes. I think they're great. A lot of people find them disturbing, but I think they're awesome. So next up is number 5, Alexius. He commands the Earth with quiet strength. His title is the Taciturn Stalwart. You'll notice that I realized my head was just blocking way too much, so I moved myself over out of the way. I could have gone back and redone the other videos, but I'm lazy. So Alias is his somebody name, and his title is the Silent Hero, which is an interesting title for a villain. But he didn't ever act particularly evil as an organization member. We'll get to that in a minute. His attribute is the Earth. And again, we don't know what his subordinate nobodies would look like because he was defeated in Chain of Memories by Riku. So his weapon is, they called it, if you look at the dictionary, not the dictionary, the notes, the what's his face? Oh gosh, what's his name? The Cricket. Jiminy Cricket's notes in Chain of Memories, it's called, or the D notes or whatever Riku has, it's called a tomahawk, and its name is Sky Splitter. In later reference material, it's referred to as an axe sword, because obviously a tomahawk is supposed to be a small throwing axe, not this giant thing that he's using. So his history as a somebody, he worked as a guard / apprentice for King Ansem along with Dylan. As a nobody, he was sent to observe and interfere with Marluxia's plans at to observe Marluxia at Castle Oblivion and interfere if he tried to do something opposed to Xemnas' will. He ended up getting tangled up with Riku. He tried to convince Riku to join the side of darkness. When it failed, he tried to kill Riku, and then he was defeated by Riku instead, and Ansem took over Riku and killed him. And that's literally all we see of Alexius. Hopefully we'll get to see more of him in Kingdom Hearts 3 because we barely saw him in Chain of Memories. So for the future, for Kingdom Hearts 3, like Xaldin and Vexen, he awoke on that floor of that lab, and so far as we know, he hasn't picked a side. He hasn't shown up in the trailers. He doesn't seem particularly evil, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him join Sora's side, but we don't know a lot about him. I haven't seen enough of him to be confident in saying, yeah, he's not a bad guy, even if his title is the Silent Hero. To say, yeah, he'll definitely join Sora's side. He may not show up at all. It's entirely possible that some of these organization members are just not important enough to show up again. I don't know if that's the case. I kind of feel like it isn't the case, but we don't know for sure, so we'll see. And I have no personal notes for him, and his personality is that he's the most taciturn of the nobodies outside of combat. So outside of combat, he's very calm, very... Let's think about this logically. And then when he gets in combat, he rages and powers up. So that's a pretty interesting way to deal with things. Next up, we have number 6, Zexion. He wields shadows and illusions. He is a cloaked schemer, and he is organization member number 6. So that is his title, the Cloaked Schemer. His attribute is illusions. So he creates replicas of himself or others, or he can disguise himself as other people. We see it in Chain of Memories. He disguises himself as Sora to deal with Riku, and we see when he fights other people, he'll create a shadow clones of himself. So he doesn't, again, he was defeated in Chain of Memories, so he doesn't have any nobodies that he controls that we know of. His weapon is a book called a lexicon. It's a type of book, is a lexicon. And he calls his the Book of Retribution. So if that means anything to you, and he'll flip through it and cast spells to summon the shadows or whatever he ends up doing in combat. So his history, he was actually a very young apprentice to Ansem. When we see him in Birth by Sleep, he looks like a kid, honestly. But he's definitely at least teenaged by the time, as you can see in this image here, he's teenaged by the time we get to Chain of Memories. All of these videos, by the way, are from the opening to 358 over 2 days. And if the nobody died during Chain of Memories, then it's usually some sort of cutscene from Chain of Memories. So again, like I said, he was a very young apprentice, and he was one of the founding members of the organization. So far as nobody, he worked with Alexius in Castle Oblivion as an observer / don't let Marluxia commit treason. He also tried to trick Riku into joining the side of darkness, and he screwed up. Riku defeated him, he fled, and then Axel brought replica Riku to kill him. And I'm still not entirely sure. That's one of the few things where I can't even come up with an explanation for why did Axel do that. I don't know. If you know, let me know in the comments below. I haven't been able to find anything. I haven't been able to think up anything myself. A lot of stuff I can come up with at least some sort of made up reason for why that might make sense. In this case, I got nothing. But that's what happened to him. So his personality, he is the most research-oriented of the nobodies, the most curious. So Vexen likes to perform his experiments. Zexion likes to research, which is different from performing experiments. It's two different sides of the science coin. He is weak physically, especially compared to the other nobodies, but he is very strong magically, which is a good thing because he wields a book. You can hit somebody with it, but if you're really strong, you don't hit him with a book. So that works out pretty well. And I have no personal notes for him. He's our little emo nobody. I mean, they're all kind of covered in chains and zippers and wearing black, so they're all kind of emo. But among the emo of Organization 13, he is the most emo with the bangs. Next up is Sykes, organization member lucky number 7, the adjutant, driven by the moon to seek hearts. So he is number 7. His title is the Luna Diviner. His name, oh, I forgot to tell you Zexion's name. Zexion's name was Ienzo, for whatever that's worth. Sykes' name was Isa. His title, as I said, is the Luna Diviner. As you can see, the Luna Diviner. His attribute is the moon. So he uses this ability to go berserk, and it allows him to resist damage and deal resist damage and also deal extra damage. It makes him stronger and in every sense of the word. So it's a little bit like a werewolf kind of thing going on, but yeah, so that's an interesting attribute. I guess when you have 13 people and you're used to only working with elements, you come up with some interesting stuff. So his nobodies, of course, are the berserkers. His weapon is a claymore, and he calls it the lunatic. Of course, what else would you call it when your power is the moon? His history as a somebody was he joined Ansem's apprentices with Lee. They were best friends, and then he becomes a founding member of the organization. So far as a nobody, he acts as Xemnas' right-hand man, or well, more, I guess his left-hand man, because Xigbar's the right-hand man. He's there all the time. So Sykes, especially once the plan becomes to gather hearts, is the guy who's really pushing that plan forward. At that point, I think Xigbar is kind of going a little bit AWOL. He's like, what are we doing? This is not the plan, guys. But maybe that's just me. So Sykes is the other main force in helping to try to realize that vision. And in the future, we see in Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance that he has regained his nobody form, and he has chosen to join the new organization. So he is going to be a primary antagonist in Kingdom Hearts 3. His personality, I think of him a little bit as the Riku to Axel Sora, if like there was a dark mirror or maybe a blurry mirror. They're not... Axel's not necessarily an evil Sora, but they're dimmer versions. That's really the word I'm looking for. Dimmer versions. So Sykes is like a Riku who didn't turn back from the darkness, who really embraced the darkness and then tried to manipulate his best friend into doing more evil. And really that's Sykes. Sykes and Axel appear to have some sort of plan, but really I think Sykes is trying to manipulate Axel throughout the events of Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, just to accomplish their goal. He doesn't really care about Axel anymore. I think he feels that the loss of his heart means that he doesn't have to respect the friendship they once had. He can do whatever he wants now, so he abuses that friendship because he sees that Axel still has some respect for it. Personal notes. I wonder how he got that X-shaped scar on his face. I'm hoping maybe we'll learn about that in Kingdom Hearts 3. I want to know, is it an indication of his devotion to the cause? Does it have something to do with his ties to the moon? Some kind of disfigurement like the werewolf thing? Did he do it to himself, or did it just happen to him when he became a nobody? Because he doesn't have it when you see him as a somebody in Birth by Sleep. Or did somebody else do it to him? Who gave that to him, and what does it mean, and how did it get there? That's what I want to know. That's my personal notes, is I want to know the answers to those questions. We probably never will, but that's what I want to know. And we made our way all the way to number 8. Mr. Axel, the assassin with motives of his own. The Flurry of Dancing Flames. That's his title, and it also tells you his attribute, which is fire. So his nobodies are the assassins, and honestly, I don't even remember what the assassins are, but those are his nobodies. His weapon, as you can see in that little video clip there, are his chakrams. They're called the Eternal Flames. His history as a somebody was that he was just kind of a happy-go-lucky guy, a little older, a little bit less idealistic than Sora when we first meet him, but he went to have an adventure basically with his best friend Isa and joined Ansem's apprentices, and becomes the final founding member of Organization 13. So far as a nobody, Axel has been, he's been pretty busy. He has been really kind of a pivot point. He's always there when big things are happening with the organization. So he was the primary contact for Roxas. They kind of made him the main guy in training Roxas when they brought him into the organization, and we'll talk more about Roxas's role in the organization in a little bit. Became best friends with him to kind of replace that bond that I think he knew wasn't there with Sykes anymore, even as he tried to pretend that it was. He was sent to Castle Oblivion to deal with the various traitors, and he ends up killing 4 of them. 2 traitors, somebody to prevent the traitors from getting a hold of that person, and then a 4th person just because he could. Upon his return, he gets into a lot of arguments with Roxas and Xion, even though they're all 3 supposed to be best friends. When Roxas fled the organization, Axel is kind of the fixer. When there's a problem, send to Axel. So when Roxas ran away, Axel was sent to retrieve him, but then eventually betrayed the organization and followed his own path, motives of his own. Axel never really fit in with the organization. I think he was just kind of doing it because he didn't know what else to do, and then once he decided on another path, then he didn't even mind leaving. And that's probably why he didn't have any compunctions about killing the other organization members. It's just because who cares? They're just nobodies. He doesn't feel any connection to them. Eventually in Kingdom Hearts 2, he sacrifices himself to save Sora from a nobody attack and to open a portal to the world that never was, so that Sora can do his hero thing. He reappears, he wakes up with a bunch of the others that we've already mentioned in that lab as his human self Lee, and he immediately chooses to join the side of Sora. He decides he wants to be a Keyblade Master and goes to help Mickey and friends, and then goes to Yensid and says, hey, make me a Keyblade Master. He actually helps Riku and Mickey, Donald and Goofy to save Sora when Xehanort tries to make Sora the 13th vessel of his heart. One thing we do know about him is that at the end of Coded, he is one of the people that Data Nominee says is attached to Sora's heart and needs his help. And that's that. I think that about covers it. So his future, he does learn to summon a Keyblade at the end of Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, and we see from the trailers that he's been doing some training, so he's going to be doing some sort of test. I don't know if it's a Mark of Mastery test or some other test, early in Kingdom Hearts 3, I expect, in order to help join the Forces of Light. His personality is fiery and predictable. No one really knows what he wants, least of all him. He seems to really just get most of his pleasure out of screwing up other people's plans, no matter what those plans are or who those people are. He doesn't have, as I mentioned before, he doesn't really have any allegiance to anyone but himself, but if he does, well, that's not true. He has no allegiance to anyone but himself and his two friends. And then, of course, he has his catchphrase, got it memorized, which I love that catchphrase, got it memorized. So here we have number 9. This is a guy that made me really start thinking about doing this. He is a sitar playing, wields water, he's laid back, and his title is the Melodious Nocturne. So yes, his attribute is water. We actually don't know. This is the first nobody we've come across where this is true. We don't know his somebody name. There were rumors that his somebody name is Dime, as in, I guess there's a band called Dime, D-Y-M-E, but it's not confirmed, so we don't know his somebody name. His nobodies are the dancers. His weapon is, of course, that sitar, which he calls the arpeggio. His history as a somebody is completely unknown. Nobody knows anything about him. All the research I did, it was the best we could tell. He was turned into a nobody on an unknown world, and he was recruited by an organization member to the organization. He's one of the first recruit we've come across here. So the first 8 were all original members. The rest of them are recruits. I don't know in what order necessarily they were recruited. I guess he was recruited first because that's how they've ordered him. But we don't know who even recruited him or where from. His history is completely unknown to us. So far as a nobody, he attempted to cause trouble for Hercules and in Radiant Garden during the Heartless attack. He fights only when cornered. He's not necessarily a coward, but he doesn't like fighting. He doesn't enjoy it, so he avoids it whenever possible. And he does not fight directly. He will use his sitar to summon water elementals to fight for him instead. His future is unclear. We, unlike a lot of the other nobodies, we did not see him in Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, and we also haven't seen him in any of the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers. It's entirely possible that we've seen all of Demyx we're ever going to see, which would kind of suck because we barely know who he is in the first place. One of the things, he is very different from the other organization members in that he is the least ruthless, at least of the members. He does not just kill things. He does not just make things happen just because he knows it needs to be done. He'll do what he can to get out of it if he doesn't feel like doing it. The rest of them are like, this needs to be done, doing it. He's like, do I have to? Okay, fine, I'll do it. So he's very laid back. He just wants to play on his sitar all day. Can you blame him? Getting close to the end of the organization now. So this is organization member number 10, Lux Sword. Again, we don't know his name, his somebody name. My personal guess would be Ludor, just because that's the only way I can think to arrange the letters in a way that sounds like a name. So he controls time. That's his attribute. He also likes to wager. He loves to gamble. He thinks he wins every game. He tries to win every game. His title is the Gambler of Fate. So his nobodies are the gamblers, which makes sense. They're the nobodies that have the cards and the dice, and they're really irritating. His weapon that he uses in combat are his playing cards, which are called fair game. His history is basically, we know as much about him as we do Demix. He was turned into a nobody on an unknown world and was recruited by an unknown organization member. So far as a nobody, he attempted to create trouble at Port Royal. He didn't even really seem to be trying to turn anyone in particular into a Heartless, but he was defeated by Sora and Captain Jack Sparrow. His future, we know from the trailers that he is definitely trying to cause trouble again in Port Royal. It's unclear if he's working on his own or if he's working for Xehanort and company, so he could be a little bit of a wild card. Pun intended that time. But we don't know for sure. He's probably working for Xehanort, but we don't know for sure. He does have a little bit more personal flair. He's styled his clothing a little bit more than some of the other organization members. His personality is that he's one of those guys that you'll see in a lot of stories where he can't resist a good bet, right? So if you make a bet with him, he wouldn't be able to resist. That's not actually something that's used against him, which is just fine, because that cliche is a little bit overdone, though it might happen in Kingdom Hearts 3, you never know. But that's okay. So that's kind of his personality, though. And then let me look at my personal notes. Let's see. The gambler or rogue archetype is well established in fiction, but Lux Sword pretty much disregards those tropes without replacing them with anything that makes him much more interesting. So he's like, oh, he's a gambler, and you're just supposed to like fill in the blanks, but they don't do anything. They don't fill in the blanks with any actual actions, and they don't fill it with something else either. So they just go gambler, and you're supposed to go, oh, so he's all of these things, which is what I kind of just did there. But so that's how it works. Hopefully we'll get to see a little bit more of him in Kingdom Hearts 3. So this is where my research starts to really get a little bit more interesting to me. This is organization member number 11, Marluxia. His ambitions are hidden by flowers and scythe, and his title is the Graceful Assassin. Technically, we don't know what his somebody name is, but we've seen a character in Kingdom Hearts Union Cross called Laurium, which fits the pattern. If you took that X out and rearranged the letters, you could get Laurium. Excuse me. So that's probably who he is. Also, it's a dude with long pink hair, and we've only seen one of those. So his attribute is flowers. He can throw sharp petals like throwing knives. He can summon floral themed minions, and he can kind of disguise himself a little bit. He got some poison stuff going on. So he's just anything you can think of to really go with flowers and thorns. He's got that going on. He died, quote unquote, in Chain of Memories. So we don't know what his nobodies are called. We do know that there are some floral themed appearing nobodies in the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers. So he does command some sort of nobodies, but we don't know what their names are yet. His weapon is the scythe. It's called Graceful Dahlia. Don't know why. I guess I could have done a little bit more research to figure that out. I assume it has something to do with well, I don't, whatever, it doesn't matter. There were some murders, the Black Dahlia murders. I feel like it probably has something to do with that, but I don't know for sure. So his history as somebody, if he is in fact Laurium, is he was a pink-haired dandelion leader. So the dandelions, just to give some real broad strokes, there was a Keyblade War way back in the day. There were 5 Union leaders that were supposed to prevent the war, or they thought they were going to prevent the war, but the prophecies knew they were going to make it happen anyway. So one of the leaders was tasked with creating a group of Keyblade wielders that would survive the war, and these were known as the Dandelions. And Laurium was not only a Dandelion, he was chosen as one of the 5 leaders of the Dandelions. And that's all we know about Laurium so far in the English version of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. There may be more about him in the Japanese version, because the Japanese version is further in the story than the English version, but I haven't been able to find that information yet. Anything other than, okay, he's a leader of the Dandelions. If that is in fact Laurium, he is very old, because the Keyblade War happens well before Xehanort is born, in Chain of, or not, excuse me, not Chain of Memories, in Birth by Sleep. He is a very old man by the time we get to Birth by Sleep, and that takes place 10 years before Kingdom Hearts, which takes place a little bit more than a year, or about a year before Kingdom Hearts 2. So you're talking probably over 100 years at least, at a minimum. So far, as a nobody in Chain of Memories, he was placed in charge of Castle Oblivion, decided he didn't like the way things were being run, so he decided he was going to perform a coup, and he captured Naminé and forced her to use her memory powers to try and control Sora so that he could overthrow Xemnas and take over the organization. He was eventually defeated by Sora. Let's see. In the future, we do know that Marluxia or Laurium, we're actually not sure which version of him it is, appears in the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers. We don't know who he's working for or why. He seems to be... I would guess he's actually not working for Xehanort. My gut instinct was to say he's probably working for Xehanort because he's a bad guy. But I feel like his inclusion in Union Cross means that there's more to him than meets the eye, and that he's going to play a different role, maybe a third side in Kingdom Hearts 3, but we don't know for sure. But that's my conjecture, is that Marluxia actually knows something from having been around before the first Keyblade War, the last Keyblade War, whichever it is, and now he's going to be doing something else in Kingdom Hearts 3 besides working for either of the two sides, working on some agenda of his own based on what he knows from back then. His personality is he's a cruel schemer, but he's powerful. Personal notes. According to the wiki, he was originally planned to be a woman, but they didn't want both traders to be women. We'll get to that in a second. And also, I think it would have been a bad idea for, in the Square Enix / Final Fantasy canon, to have two flower-themed pink-haired women. I think that would have been confusing, because you got lightning over in Final Fantasy 13, is that. Though hers is specifically roses. I mean, his appear to be rose petals, but it's never specifically said, I don't think. I am looking forward, hopefully in Kingdom Hearts 3, to finding out what his deal is from having been alive before the Keyblade War. Why would he join Organization 13, and what is he doing now in Kingdom Hearts 3? We're almost to the end now. We've got number 12, again, another very interesting organization. Remember, this is Larxene. So, she's armed with knives, lightning, and a temper, and her title is the Savage Nymph. Honestly, I give you that she's savage, but the whole nymph thing, I think, is literally just because she's a woman, which is a little bit of a letdown. Really, we just gotta name a nobody. She's the only woman in the organization, and we just gotta call her a nymph because she's a woman. Alright, guys. I mean, we can do better, but it's fine. So her attribute obviously is lightning. Her somebody name, now this is where we're kind of going even further afield. Her somebody name appears to be Elrena. So there is a character who has shown up in the Japanese version of Union Cross, but who has not yet shown up in the English version, named Elrena, who has the same little insect-like bangs things going on that she does. And then, of course, Elrena fits the name. So we don't know any nobodies for her. Her weapon are her knives. Her weapons are her knives, as you can see there in the picture. She calls them Foudre? I don't know. They're never named in the game, so I'm just getting that information from the wiki. Her history, we actually know who she was recruited by. She was recruited by Xigbar from an unknown world. And I think in her human form, she may have been a dandelion. Elrena in Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, I know very little about her because, again, I'm just getting, they haven't even gotten this far in the English version of the game, so I'm having to read this from like second and third and fourth hand sources. So in Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, the character Elrena is a dandelion. She's not one of the leaders, but she does know Laurium. And that's basically all we know about her. And so far, as a nobody, she helped Marluxia attempt his coup and was defeated by Sora. So this is an interesting thing. So we've got two organization members who appear to have known each other as somebodies before the Keyblade War. And those two organization members attempted to perform a coup during the events of Sora's time doing things. I think that's meaningful. I think that's important. I don't know how meaningful or important. And Laurium and Elrina both appeared to be very friendly people, whereas Marluxia and Larxene both appear to be very cruel people. They kidnap what's her face, Naminé, and force her to use her powers to hurt someone else, and the way they do it is very not nice, and then the way they treat Replica Riku is very dark, very cruel. So it may be that turning into nobodies turned them evil. It may be that there's something else going on. It may be that they forgot themselves. It's really not clear what the deal is exactly with them, but there's definitely something going on between those two. There's too many things tying them together for me to think that these things are unimportant. So her personality as a nobody, she appears to actually enjoy inflicting pain. She's much faster, much more agile than most of the organization members. Most of them seem to prefer some sort of powerful magics or powerful but slow attacks. A couple of that's not necessarily true, because I can think Xigbar uses his guns. Xemnas and Axel are both pretty fast, but she's the fastest. She's the fastest member, the most agile. Personal notes. What do I got here? I got the only female organization member. Yeah, she. The only thing that I haven't mentioned so far is that she and Marluxia definitely. There's got to be some kind of hidden agenda, some kind of special reveal planned for those two in Kingdom Hearts 3. So we should definitely be looking forward to that. Neither of them appear to have returned to their friendly aspects, so it wouldn't surprise me to find out that they are again nobodies. But it may surprise us to find out why. And finally, we get to number 13, Roxas. So his name is derived from Sora, and he's Sora's nobody, but it's complicated. I guess since we're doing a nobody's explainer, I should go ahead and do it. So his heart joined with Sora. Ventus is, of course, the Birth by Sleep character. His heart joined with Sora. That's why the nobody looks like Ventus, because and he's kind of a weird nobody because he was created when Sora freed his own heart, but his heart became darkness not for very long, and then he was turned back into a human. So Roxas is a very unique nobody, and he actually doesn't remember his past initially, which is unique for him. So of course his title is the Key of Destiny. He is awakened in the flickering light of dusk. So of course we see him a lot in Twilight Town, and I think that's interesting thematically because it's a little bit like he comes into being kind of at Sora's darkest moment, right? When Sora's turned into a Heartless, he sacrifices himself. So he is the Twilight. He is the last moment of light. Roxas is there, and I think that's interesting thematically. So his attribute is light. His nobodies are the Samurai. I really thought they would be the Dusks for some reason, maybe because they were the most generic, and he's the blank slate kind of guy without the memories. His weapon, of course, is the Keyblade. His history: he was born when Sora released his heart to release the hearts of Kairi and the other princesses of Heart. But because Sora regained his human form, Roxas doesn't remember anything about who he was before. And Sora regains it almost immediately. And so there's all kinds of issues that arise because Roxas shouldn't exist. Even as far as a lot of people feel like nobody shouldn't ever exist, they're abominations of nature. Roxas really shouldn't exist. So far as a nobody, he spent about a year collecting hearts for the organization before he was eventually captured by Rico and Diz, so that his memories could be given back to Sora so that Sora could regain himself. Excuse me. The future of Roxas. Now this is interesting. So Coded makes it clear that Roxas is again one of those characters that has a heart. Not just Ventus, but Roxas. They're both there. Roxas's heart is tied to Sora's heart. We learn in Dream Drop Distance that nobodies can actually form hearts of their own, and that's what happened with Roxas. Is he formed his own heart, so he existed as a full, complete being for a period of time, and so his heart is tied to Sora's, along with Axel's. This is the deal with Axel's heart. His heart is tied to Sora's, and he is one of the people that Sora needs to help. And we've seen in the trailers that Sora, at least at some point in the game, is looking for a way to give Roxas a body, so that Roxas can exist as his own self again. So that's going to be a primary goal for Sora in Kingdom Hearts 3. His personality is very similar to Sora in a lot of ways. He's cheerful and friendly, but he's got a little bit of a darker side. He's much more likely to get angry. Sora will get angry if you mistreat his friends, but not himself. Roxas will get angry if you mistreat him too. Maybe you thought that was all of the organization members, but we actually have one more to cover. This is the cutscene from Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, where she is introduced. Her name is Xion. So her somebody name, or her name, what her name is derived from, because she doesn't have a somebody name, is number one, I Roman numeral 1. She was the first of Vexen's replica experiments, where he attempted to create a replica of Roxas, and she is an imperfect replica. For one thing, she's a woman, not a Roxas, but a lot of the stuff she has is the same. So her attribute is also light. She doesn't have any subordinate nobodies. Her weapon is also a Keyblade. I just told you her history. So they wanted more Keyblade wielders, is why he did that. Because more Keyblade wielders equals more destruction of hearts, more destruction of Heartless equals more captured hearts for Kingdom Hearts. So, as a nobody, she worked with Roxas and Axel, her best friends, to gather hearts for the organization. She learned about friendship and being like a living being with them, but as she grew strong, Roxas grew weaker, so she was kind of a failed experiment. The idea was to have both of them there doing their Keyblade thing, and as it turned out, you can't really have both of them. One or the other of them will eventually steal the abilities from the other one. She allowed herself to be defeated by Roxas so that her memories could be restored to Sora after having a conversation with Riku. Even knowing that her destruction would cause her to be forgotten by everyone who had ever met her. And it's a really gut-wrenching moment in 358 over 2 days when she allows herself to be destroyed, even knowing that Roxas, moments after he's defeated her, won't even know why he's so sad that she's gone, because he won't know who she is. But it does happen. Fortunately, Kingdom Hearts Coded makes it clear that she is another one of those people. I guess her nobody also grew a heart, because her heart is tied to Sora's, and he has to help her as part of his mission in Kingdom Hearts 3. If you ever doubted that, which you should not have, she shows up in the cover art of Kingdom Hearts 3. She is going to be a major factor in Kingdom Hearts 3. Sora is looking for a way to bring Roxas back to life. I kind of assume that when he does that, he'll try to bring Xion back to life as well. It's not 100% clear. I don't know how this is all going to work out, but her existence is, or her former existence at least, is going to be a major factor in the events of Kingdom Hearts 3. So her personality is kind of interesting, because it depends on who she's interacting with, who's dealing with her. As she deals more with Roxas and Axel, they see her more as her own self, but most of the organization members just see her as kind of a blank slate, with no emotions, no personality, no traits, no quirks, no anything. Not that she was ever a particularly interesting person, because she's just kind of like, oh hey, I'm here and I'm your friend. Because she's just a replica of Roxas, who is not a super interesting person on his own. Like, if Roxas was the only person you were dealing with, you would be like, okay, so did you have any personality to share with us, to share with the class today? All right, so that is pretty much, that's it. That's all I got for you. That's the entirety of Organization 13. Their goals, their missions, their members, everything that I could find about them. If I have missed something or forgotten something, let me know in the comments below. Who's your favorite organization member? Mine's always kind of been Axel. I think that's probably a lot of people's favorite organization member. I usually am like, oh, I can't have the same favorite as everyone else, but it's Axel. How can you not love Axel? So let me know that in the comments below, or hit me up on Twitter, or both. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informational. I hope that you are hyped for Kingdom Hearts 3. I am super hyped. By the time this goes up, there will be less than 10 days until release. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. So the new Organization 13 is probably made up of a bunch of members of the old Organization 13. It'll be interesting to see who shows up there, who shows up doing other things. You know, that reminds me, I forgot to say that Zexion, Ienzo, he actually is one of the few members we know for a fact is actually helping Sora. So we know that Axel / Lee and Ienzo are both helping, or is it Ienzo? I can't remember. They're helping Sora. So maybe other members are helping Sora, or maybe they're working for Xehanort, or maybe they're working for Marluxia on a third side, or maybe they're doing something on their own, or maybe they're not going to show up at all. I don't know. You don't know. But we know this stuff that I've already told you today in this probably incredibly long video at this point. We know all that, and it's exciting. So now I think we're pretty clear on who these people are, and what their goals have been in the past, and what they're going to try and do in the future. If you have any questions, please do put those down in the comments below. I will do my best to answer them, or find answers, or maybe some other members, members of the fandom will come and answer questions for us. That's all I got for you. I hope you all have a beautiful day. I hope you all know that you're all beautiful yourselves, and I hope that all your paths are paved with hexagonal stones. And I'll see you next time. Here's a quick shout out to all of my patrons. For as little as $1 a month, you too can have your name listed here. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, please do hit the like and subscribe buttons to help me reach more people.